Tonight's story is about a group of thrill-seekers who decide to explore an abandoned asylum, only to realize they've made a terrifying mistake. What starts as an adventure quickly turns into a nightmare as they encounter eerie laughter, ghostly figures, and something that was better left undisturbed. This is the story of the abandoned asylum exploration gone wrong. Let's dive in. The story begins with a group of friends. Let's call them Jake, Emma, Chris, and Sarah. They were the type of friends always looking for a thrill, the kind who sought out haunted locations and urban legends. So, when they heard about an abandoned asylum on the outskirts of town, it didn't take long for them to plan an adventure. The asylum had been closed for decades, and rumors about what went on there were the stuff of local legend. Some said it was haunted by the spirits of the patients who had died there. Others claimed strange experiments took place in the basement, and that the asylum was shut down after the truth came to light. But to Jake and his friends, it was just another spooky place to explore. A challenge they couldn't resist. They arrived at the asylum just as the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the crumbling building. The place was enormous, its windows broken and covered with vines, the doors barely hanging on their hinges. The air around them was thick with the smell of decay and dampness. It felt like the kind of place where time had stopped, where whatever happened inside those walls had been long forgotten by the outside world. Jake was the first to step inside, pushing open the heavy doors with a loud creak. The others followed close behind, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The halls were empty, littered with debris, old medical equipment, and graffiti. At first, everything seemed normal, just an old, forgotten building. But then, things started to change. As they walked deeper into the asylum, they began to hear it. Faint footsteps echoing down the long, empty corridors. They stopped in their tracks, listening. At first, they thought it was just the sound of their own footsteps bouncing off the walls, but then they heard it again. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from behind them. Jake spun around, shining his flashlight down the hall, but there was no one there. "Probably just the wind," he said, trying to sound confident, but there was a nervous edge to his voice that wasn't there before. The group continued on, but the feeling of unease grew. Every so often, they would hear a door creak open or close in the distance, even though no one else was inside. They tried to laugh it off, but the tension was building. And then came the laughter. It started faint, barely audible at first, like someone chuckling quietly in the next room. But as they moved forward, it grew louder, echoing through the empty halls. It was the kind of laugh that sent chills down your spine. Not playful, but menacing. The group stopped again, shining their flashlights in every direction, but there was nothing, just the sound of that eerie laughter surrounding them. Sarah was the first to say it. "We should leave. This doesn't feel right." But before they could decide what to do next, Chris pointed towards the end of the hallway. "Did you see that?" he whispered. Everyone turned to where he was pointing, and that's when they saw it. A figure, standing just out of the range of their flashlights. It looked like a person, but something was off. It was too still, too pale, and then it moved. The figure stepped forward, just enough for them to catch a glimpse of its face, blank, ghostly, with hollow eyes staring straight at them. Without saying a word, the group bolted, running as fast as they could down the hallways, their flashlights bouncing wildly in the dark. But no matter how fast they ran, the footsteps behind them never stopped, always just a few steps behind. As they reached the entrance, the laughter returned, louder than ever. It was as if the asylum itself was mocking them, taunting them for thinking they could explore its secrets without consequence. They burst through the front doors and didn't stop running until they were back at their car, gasping for breath. No one spoke as they peeled out of the parking lot, the asylum fading into the distance behind them. But the silence in the car was thick with fear, because they all knew what they had seen, what they had heard. Later, they tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was just their imaginations playing tricks on them. Maybe the asylum was just too eerie, and their minds had filled in the blanks. But deep down, each of them knew the truth. Something was in that asylum with them. And whatever it was, it didn't want them there. The story of the abandoned asylum exploration gone wrong is a reminder that some places are abandoned for a reason. There are things in this world better left undisturbed, and once you awaken them, there's no going back. Thank you for joining us on this terrifying journey into the unknown. If this story gave you chills, make sure to like, subscribe,